Arindam Som, who's going to be talking about his perspectives and insights on the health and wellness industry. Arindam comes with 20 plus work experience in the consumer market and market insight space, spanning across FMCG and media, as well as consumer health. With over 20 years, he's worked in different parts of the world, covering all three big regions, which is Asia Pacific, LATAM, and Europe. And he's been responsible and been part of large organizations like Unilever and GSK, building billion-dollar brands across these two industries. Very happy to welcome Arindam to the session. Thanks, Arindam, for joining us today.
Hi, guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You could share your screen, Arindam, now.
Yeah, can you just enable me to share the screen? It says you cannot start.
Just stop sharing. You could do that now.
Brilliant. This is my stuff.
So while Arindam is pulling his slides, the housekeeping remains the same, housekeeping rules. There's a Q&A section. Please feel free to drop in the questions here. I will read it out to Arindam to answer it at the end of the session.
Thanks so much, guys. So I'm Arindam. I come from, I stay in the north part of India in Gurgaon. I'm originally a Bengali, so I come from Calcutta. I'm a family man. I have my wife who's also a Bengali, my son who's also, studying in, Gurgaon, but he's getting used to the Indian culture and also the Bengali culture. I'm speaking from my, hometown, which is Calcutta, because I've come here for the vacation. And it's a nice way to start the year, with such young entrepreneurs. And hopefully I can add on to your knowledge and your power of execution. Yeah. So, after having spent about 20 years in, Unilever, HUL, and GSK, which has been kind of like the ways in which FMCG and also consumer health marketing is done. It's done in a very good way and rigorous ways. And we've learned from that. And not only we've learned the insights part, but we've also learned how insights can be made effective for business. So here is a perspective which I would give from time to time. I'll try to say that how can it be, there is rich insights all around, but then how can we make it business effective, especially in the new era of, entrepreneurs trying to build big businesses for the contemporary consumers who are, self-empowered, always online, and digitally motivated. Yeah. So yeah, I have also formed my own company, which is called the brand Eigen. You can see the logo at the top right. So it's a brand Eigen insights and analytics company, and I'm there as well as my friend Aurobindo. He is also currently the chief strategy officer at Denso in a consulting role. Plus, he's served many research agencies at very senior positions. Kantar, Nielsen, TNS, all across. He's also an ISI graduate, and therefore he's brilliant in modeling and analytics. Plus, he's a master in media and digital. So that's how we complement each other. I come from a very client-end experience, and he comes from a very research and media-led experience. That's why we thought it would be a good one. Yeah. So this is what we are. We are a new age, insights analytics consulting firm where our focus is research data-enabled consulting for your brand and business. And on the other hand, we also algorithmize, automate all the contemporary marketing models for your purpose. Our vision is to increase relevance in research. Our approach is to enable real-time measurements, as is the worldwide, thinking on research, especially in this new age era. And our USPs are contextual engagement with the consumer, game-enabled interrogations with the consumer, and much more intuitive, passive system one measurements of the consumer's mind. Yeah. So we're trying to move away from the survey-based research to much more of passive understanding of consumer emotions. Given that, I'll try to jump onto the topic today. Yeah. And I'll talk mainly about health and wellness in different ways, but I'll also talk about the what and the how. Yeah. And I'll tell you exactly when I'm talking about the how to enable insights for your organization. Yeah. Now, first of all, a bit of understanding of what in the wellness space is becoming big. Yeah. So, for the last 5 years, while I have been in consumer health, we have tried to, segment the business from curative health to proactive maintenance health to aspirational stroke enhancement health. Yeah. So curative is like, what is probably currently 95% of the business today. Like if you have a headache, you have a Panadol or a Saridon, that's curative. If you have, a pain, you have Iodex, that's curative. But there is like, the entire maintenance space, which is becoming big, which is around, let's say, heart health management, diabetes management. And obviously, when we talk about the enhancement and the preventive spaces, we are not only just talking about drugs as solutions, but beyond drugs to devices and apps. Yeah. And then there is this big segment which is about aspirational health, which is, we call it as the enhancement health space as well, where a lot of mental health, wellness space, immunity space is becoming bigger, and there is a huge surge which we see from all around the world and even in India, especially in the online space, where these things would become bigger. Uh, these things would become bigger for various reasons. Let me just tell you why they are becoming bigger in a very functional way first. In this chart towards the right hand side, you'll see the uh, there is a higher short-term growth and a long-term growth, which is predicted for some of the categories like nutritional supplements, derma care, VMS as we call it, vitamin mineral supplements. And there are specific nuances in which these categories would grow, and not in the ways it has grown in the, let's say the older times, though some of the category basics will remain strong as we go along. So that's some of the things which is there. But then, beyond this, just the chart, we at, like, let's say Unilever or, GSK, or at brand Eigen now, we look at not only growth and turnover, but we also see factors like brand clutter, which I've mentioned in my text below, which means that whether the category is dominated by single or two brands versus whether the category has multiple brands and therefore smaller share, and therefore we have a chance as entrepreneurs, as new brands, to become the number 1, 2, 3 brand in a, let's say, 3-4 years time. Yeah. So therefore our way of analyzing the category and therefore helping you, let's say, in your ways of developing your business would be not only to look at turnover, but of course estimated growth rate, but also about know much more about brand dominance and brand clutter. I'll move to my next slide. And there are different things which are happening in the health segment. I talked about, like especially the new ones as the, the preventive health space and the enhancement health space. But there is like, there are evolving channels, all around the world. There are much more, retail clinics, which is, talking about brand health diagnosis, and not only the GPs, not only our doctors. And there's this big doctor which is like becoming bigger and bigger, is like what we see in Google and what we would see with Amazons of the world, where there are a lot of online consultations, searches which is going on to make sure that people are much more empowered before they visit a doctor and before they visit take a solution or use a certain device as well, Towards the right hand side, you will see a lot of these interesting numbers, and I'm sure like you would already have seen it before in your, within your work remit. But it is true, like 1 in 20 health related is Google search. Yeah. Or like, 60% people tend to take an OTC product before making an appointment with a doctor. Yeah. 83% consumers feel that website or app will help them eat a healthy diet. Yeah. And you see the tracking apps and all that. So given that, the next slide is like, so what? And can we actually look at these people through their evolved behaviors? And that's where some of the work has been about, identifying personas for brand activations, where we where we not only take care of the conventional consumer, which is the passive recipient, and she may not be tracking the vitals, or we have to, she may not be, we might have to, cater to the telephonic appointments of hers, but we also, try and see, how the evolved consumer is using technology, and also looking for support for the different solutions which she wants to have on social media. Yeah. Now the point here is that all these behaviors would be there, but for young brands and young entrepreneurs, my advice would be to take 1 or 2 lead behaviors of each persona, which we can identify, and then activate for your brand in depth. So you cover depth rather than width is one of our greater learnings from my experience, in my Unilever and GSK stints. But it's also important, while we activate this, like we participate in the automated healthcare space, and that's one of the bigger things there. Now, the purpose of participation is not only to build reach, yeah, or be there and be seen as a modern brand, but it's also important to collect the very important user behavior data in your first 2-3 years, and then increase your brand strength as a result of that data. So my, 2 pence in saying that why we should, participate in the automated healthcare space even today is, it's not going to build the 100 crores business immediately, because of obviously much lesser people aware and much lesser people using those spaces. But it's to actually see who are the guys who are coming in, who are the the early adopters, and get a full understanding of the behavior so that you can project it for the future and build something unique for your business today, which may not be seen in any other categories, or probably in any other countries in the world as well. Yeah, because India has a lot of like this unique behaviors, which we need to scan and understand across urban, the metros, rural India, everywhere. Yeah. So so that's the other thing, this thing. Now I'll come to some of the basics, what we should always see. And I've like taken a few examples from my previous experience, and how do we do it, or how I do it, to make sure that I understand the opportunities and validation much more. So we look at existing spaces for opportunities and validation, where we look at the turnover and the growth rates. And you can see how we were seeing it for the, let's say, the example category like laxatives. If we have already formed our business proposition, for example, we want to participate in, let's say, the herbal segment of the health and wellness sector, we try to see, how much is the contribution of that, what is the growth rate of that particular segment, whether the brand dominance is low or high. If low, great. Uh, can we actually extend our current brands to those segments? We can actually look at different concept diagnostics of your current brand, and try to see whether the likability and the believability is strong enough for you to progress with your current brands, or you need a new brand. Yeah, which is towards the last 3 lines of the the left hand side table, where you try to understand whether you have likability, believability there as well. If you have, and therefore, can you actually say that, what kind of volumetrics do you expect in the next 5 years? Yeah, and whether it is above benchmark or not. Similarly, for example, in the future spaces where you don't have an idea of the turnover and the growth rates, because not many people are participating in it. For example, in sugar management and cardiac wellness, you establish the consumer need. Yeah, you find out what is the main reason why, what is the main symptom, when people are actually talking about diabetes, and can we actually cater to that? What are the current solutions? Because the current solutions may not be the big brands. It might be home remedies. Yeah, which is the exact target segment, demographically, regionally, psychographically, attitudinally. And then you figure out again whether you can stretch the current brand, or you need a new brand, and especially look at likability and believability, especially to figure out whether you have above threshold kind of like believability to get into those businesses. Now what happens is, this gives you only the confidence to participate. Yeah, but the journey to win probably is what I'll now talk about. Yeah, here it is like the journey to win. Yeah, in the segment which you want to participate in, let's say you're talking about herbal and you're talking about immunity, you try to figure out how many people in the consumer space are the current converts who've already converted into a similar kind of a thing. Or you try to figure out, which is the middle bubble in my chart, is like, who are the tomorrow's consumers? Yeah, and who are the fence sitters of today, who are aware of the entire proposition which you are trying to build of herbal immunity, but maybe not using it because of certain reasons. And you need to know the reasons. Yeah, probably the reason is like, it's not scientific enough. I don't see the logic in taking it. I'm ignorant about it. Or you say that the current stuff is like, it probably has side effects, or it is habit inducing, and therefore I don't take it. But it's important to know the triggers and barriers among the potential consumers whom you want to target, to really find out what kind of opportunity do you want to go for. Do you want to go for a share gain opportunity, which is like, be in the, let's say, the pain analgesic segment, and then you try to gain share from there, where you want to be therefore competitively superior to the current brands? Or you want to participate in the nascent space, which is almost like in the case of immunity, probably it's like 95% of India, where you want to develop the market. Yeah, you want to develop the market in a very thorough, rigorous way. And therefore you want to look at the fence sitters of today, which is, let's say, in this particular case, of course I masked the case. It's about 45% of urban India, which is already 100 million homes which we are talking about. So, and not only, and while you get into this business of yours, try and see what are the inflection points for your proposition which you want to build. Yeah, you might have age group, age inflection. For example, in the case of one of the propositions, we figured out that at the age of 40, there is a midlife crisis, and the midlife crisis then brings in a lot of interesting facts about the kind of like the drug solutions which you want to give for, let's say, again, example, herbal immunity. And let's target the age of 40 and age around 40 to make sure that we are extremely relevant with the proposition which we have, and therefore as sharp as possible we can do cohort targeting for this particular cohort. That doesn't mean that only these people will take it, but the thing is, if you are relevant for a certain target group, you maximize your chance among that target group, and then the trickle down effect, or like the frills come in just because the product is so relevant, so superior, and you get your own space. Yeah. And it doesn't only limit at age. It is age, life stage. It's like day part, for example. Through understanding of the consumer, you might figure out that a particular day part is the most interesting for you. Yeah. And then you therefore target that 1 p.m. where there is a maximum dip in, for example, the energy among the housewives, and therefore you target that particular target segment at that particular time, yeah, or around that particular time, yeah. So it's useful for day part targeting. Then one of the other things which is become very, very important, especially in the last 5-6 years, is you also need to understand at what stage of the adoption journey is your, let's say, this category of herbal immunity is, yeah. Is it in the awareness stage, or is it like people are already considering, people are already listening to, participating in some social chatter and WhatsApp and all that? They're trying to figure out what this herbal thing is, what is the ashwagandha stuff in this particular immunity thing. Or is it like, they are already trying to figure out whether there are, influencers talking about it, or there are reviews being seen in, YouTube or Facebook videos, or already people are into Amazon and into Flipkart and they are searching for certain ingredients, and that ingredient is leading to that particular brand, let's say Revital for energy, or like, let's say, Cure Veda for sleep disorder, or these kind of stuff. Or have people moved on even from there, and there are a lot of people actually talking about the brand in the reviews and the ratings, and that becomes extremely important, because when we talk to people, we can when we actually talk and observe people, we see how they even scan and have perspectives on the ratings and the reviews, which reviews are true and which reviews are false, and which reviews to go for. So it's very important to know at what stage in this journey of the consumer adoption is this category in, and therefore you participate with your eyes open, and therefore build a proposition which is conducive to that particular stage. Your content delivery style, which might be much more education based, much more information based, if especially if you are in the lower part, in the primary part of the journey, in the awareness and consideration phase. And your content delivery style will be much more of infographics and all that kind of stuff, and probably you would be much more dominating the Google and the Amazon searches, rather than being in like having videos in YouTube and all that, yeah. So that's another way of looking at your business and how do you want to grow the business, yeah. Then especially in the health and wellness thing, I thought I'll not so much in the FMCG space, but in the health and wellness space, there's a very important part about how the experts and the influencers play a role, yeah. For example, we know patients Google ingredients prescribed by Ayurveda doctors before buying for authenticity, yeah. So have we enabled search, discovery, and conversations in Google and Amazon, for example, yeah. We know, if we are routing if we are getting our doctors to prescribe us, or doctors to influence us, we know doctors don't care about the brand as much. Doctors care about the benefit space first. And a lot of the new age brands, they have one brand, like say Cure Veda, and it spans across, let's say, 5 variants. Now the point is, a doctor is always feels that one brand for one benefit space, and that's the way specialized health spaces have grown, yeah. So if there is suddenly a single brand spanning across, they will have a doubt about it. And have we really thought about branding in that case, which is about probably you need umbrella branding and you need a 2-layer branding. For example, Cure Veda does it this way. I don't know whether it will be like 100% successful this way, but like Cure Veda Sleep Sure, but Sleep Sure is bigger than Cure Veda, because they know that ultimately it's the benefit space which will be mattering, especially if we go through the doctors and all that. Same, like if we know, for example, our particular brand, our particular proposition through the experts is not just about the solution, but it's about the 360 lifestyle. For example, if Veds talk about the diet for you, Veds will also talk about the activity, Veds will also talk about the precautions. Then do you as a brand want to participate in the consumer lifestyle space rather than just being a drug solution, yeah. So it's all about the consumer, therefore. So how the consumer today behaves with the experts is therefore the important space to know, to to make sure the service element of it, the branding element of it, and where you are participating in the conversations, therefore come through. Yeah. And this is, after doing all of this, for your brand, it's very, very important that you really know the foundation for your brand, the human truth for your brand. And I'll tell you why it is so important in the next couple of slides. But you need to connect the overall trend. You need to connect people's behavior, what they are talking about, what you can see passively. You need to connect the market conditions, and you need to know about your brand a bit, or your product, to come up with the human truth behind your brand. For example, in one of my work, we were doing this thing for herbal immunity for 40 plus people, and we were talking about, I am somebody because of what I do and dream. However, stress is creeping in with its first signs on my health, but I can't really stop or slow down. So that's the human truth. The human truth has an action towards the end, because then it connects to the category which you want to belong. And it's not just kept at the truth that stress is creeping in and I'm worried, but it's also about like the entire human aspiration that whatever it is at that age of 45 or at that age of 40, I can't stop because I have something to achieve, or I need to cater to my family, or I need to build something, and therefore it's not the time to stop, though I know that my health is coming down. So it's a vulnerability which you try to build as an insight, and then you build the brand around it, rather than building a brand just on functionality. Yeah. So I'm stressing on insight because that's where I think a brand ultimately will sustain over a long period of time. And an insight is a resounding truth that throws new light on what we know or reveals the unknown to unlock fresh thinking. This is the way we look at insights. So it's an insight is not just like, oh, people are stressed and we need a stress solution. No, it's not like that. Or people are not being able to sleep enough, and therefore there's a lot of sleep apps, let's get into it. It's not. I think for every effort of building a brand, we really need to know what's the human truth, where is the vulnerability, where is he or she feeling a bit shaky about the current situation, and then we need to utilize that situation to build our business. Yeah. And at that same point of time, I should say that especially the new brands, it's not just utilizing that opportunity, but for us new brands, it's also about building a brand purpose into his or her life. Yeah. But by using the brand, there is a certain let's say feeling, a certain benefit which she or he gets, which is of a bigger payoff, a bigger life payoff. Yeah. And you should always talk about your insight in a very, and these are the 4 questions which I always ask. Is the insight, or is the advertising, is it clear, is it ringing true? It should bring in a thing of, yeah, I knew it, I always knew it, but I never told it, that kind of a thing. Does it change the way you see things, and then only is the scope of innovations, and then can lead to new business opportunities. So after you do the insight bit, it's very important. And again, obviously I had to bring in a different example, and I had to suppress the work which we have done for several brands now. But it's very important that you know the consumer archetype as a result of it, because that will build the basics for your brand in terms of how you want to activate it. So for example, you need to know where these people come from in a very pithy way. Like these people, let's say, come from the small towns or the large satellite towns in this particular age group. Not that you will only sell to this age group, but you will build all your brand characteristics and assets for this age group. And why these, why is this Vijayawada or the Delhi NCR? Because this is where all the big banks and the lifestyle malls and the Flipkarts and Amazon is reaching a significant part of the population, and therefore democratizing aspirations. Yeah. And therefore, there is a possibility of a new brand to really make a strong foundation. And then we try to figure out, at what exact life stage are we talking about? 5 years into the first work stint, yeah, and there is a certain way of living life. 5 years into marriage and family, when the rosy days of the first marriage years are gone, and then now you are getting into the family setting and all that with your in-laws and all that. What's that vulnerability going on there? Or the person, who's kind of like grown stature in his own work or in his own business, and now is leading the business, what kind of tensions and worries is this person going through? So we need to know the people in terms of their exact life stages in this manner, and therefore cater in our messaging and of course in our benefit innovations to these people, which of course this thing. And once we do that, and once we understand the emotions of these people in terms of what are the disruptions happening in their lives, what are the stress points, and what's the person's attitude towards the category or the format or the proposition which you are trying to build, then you build a holistic consumer archetype, which, for example, I've written it as as hate a break. I don't want to stop or slow down. I hate the break. Yeah. Therefore, every element of your brand proposition and your touch points and the logic to choose that touch points is always surrounding that kind of a thing. So it's like hate a break. And it's very important that in your thinking of how to activate your business, especially in the, let's say, the health sector, um, we know that probably we are targeting the 40 plus guys who hates any breaks in life. Probably our proposition is all about enhancing you from within. That's our innovations. So we need to know what these people are currently doing and thinking, and what they would, as a result of taking your brand, hypothetically, what they would do and think in the future. And therefore, if you can crystallize that in one or two lines, yeah, about the think and the do of the current and the think and the do of the future, then you are like already onto your excellence for your building a health and wellness brand. Yeah, we call it the target group task map. In different ways, it's talked, like, let's say, across Unilever or Procter and Gamble or like Mondelez or Henkel, or in different ways, yeah, or GSK. So once you do that, our advice, especially in the health and wellness sector, which is in kind of like a inflection point by itself, because health and wellness sector from the curative spaces is now going to leapfrog into the measurement spaces, appliance spaces, devices spaces, enhancement spaces, preventive healthcare spaces. We want you to look at all this through some models or the other. Yeah. And I've taken a specific model here, which is called the market development model, which goes beyond the the Philip Kotler's 6 Ps, yeah, which is the product, price, pack, proposition, place, promotion, to something called the 10 cogs of the market development wheel, yeah, where the entire purpose of doing this is to magnify your presence in the market and uh, make sure you are extremely and ruthlessly consistent across all aspects uh, of your service or product in the consumer space. Yeah. So one of the typical things what we would start with is like, you need to make your product the hero. Yeah. And you need to, therefore, for example, if it is all about enhance from within, you need to enrich the current positioning, which might be energy for today, immunity for tomorrow. You need to look at format innovations. You need to reinforce the brand imagery through claims. Yeah, and claims may not be always coming from the regulatory bodies and all that. You need to know what really triggers in the consumer mindset, in the consumer space, to make it a claim. Yeah. um, and therefore you need to build some mnemonics through which your brand is probably understood in a 1 second time. Probably your brand should be understood through some some sensorial kind of a space. which is very strongly connected with how the brain thinks, how our evolved brain thinks, how the primitive brain thinks. At the same point of time, you need to observe, you need to make sure your product slips in the consumer's lifestyle very easily. Yeah. Because if you build a brand and it requires if you build an innovation, it requires a huge amount of behavior change. Our experience shows that it's very, very difficult to build that unless, 10 other brands are already participating in that. Then it's a different thing. But therefore, you need to always look for that consumer moment, consumer lifestyle to slip in your brand, almost like, innocuously, unknowingly, that you take that brand. For example, you have a yoga drink and you just take the yoga drink before the yoga, because as it is, you are taking let's say a lemon drink during that point of time. So not only that, our recent experiences have also told us, if there are distinct lifestyles in different parts of India, it's better to cater to them differently, especially if they are big enough and if they are scalable enough. We need to cater to them differently, because that's the way India is growing today, where there is a extreme amount of customization, localization, especially if it is needed, not for just to make a marketing story out of it, but especially if the solution or the product or the service requires that, we make sure that we blend in with the lifestyle of the regions, because in India, specifically the regional cultures are very, very strong, and it's great that if your brand can kind of like go into that, especially if it is all about health and wellness. While you build the brand, especially for the future, you make sure you build it on a moment. Yeah, let's say many brands have been made on moments, like Maggie was built on the 4 o'clock moment. Yeah, 4 o'clock snack moment. Is there a way we can build a 1 p.m. moment for let's say our own brands? Yeah. You need to also make sure that like your product attribute is actually talking about the entire positioning of enhanced from within. Not only talk like people should get that if they are actually consuming that solution. Yeah, you need to go for claim which requires a numeric comparison against the source of growth against which you are trying to build your particular innovation. These are coming from, of course, like 10-15 years of learning on research, especially quantitative research, where we know that what part of the thing element wins at what part of the consumer adoption lifestyle of a particular category. You also need to, when you actually want to say why this brand of yours, you need to think of familiarity and mystic items to increase consumer engagement. Familiarity, because then people are kind of like, they're not taking something foreign completely, but you also bring in a certain, let's say, ashwagandha, against which I probably don't know, what it is, but I'm familiar with it, and I know like I can search for it. Now, if I can search for it, I will therefore increase the engagement, and therefore the propensity for my brand to be purchased by that consumer will be high. And the other thing which has been always true is like, you need to, you cannot just leave it to a functional payoff. That has been always the story of branding. It will remain the story, that you need to connect with the bigger life story of that particular consumer. Yeah. So it's important that in your category which you want to participate, the specific triggers and barriers, especially for first trials. You need to know, what kind of an end state which people are looking for to build it as a payoff. And you also need to know, what are the reinforcers of that particular category, which will enable repurchase, and you can build that in, while you, or at least you can understand that when people are giving you the reviews and the ratings, that what are the repurchase elements or what are the reinforcers, and therefore you can build that in your product as you build it. The other thing is right size value. It's very, very important for our markets to be like this, that we exactly give the consumer a price perception at a daily level. What's the monthly thing, and do you know a magic price point so that the monthly pack can be bought? Are you e-commerce modern trade ready for with a format and the pack? Yeah. Have you built in, for example, a 30 days challenge? You know, have you challenged the existing source of growth pricing? So that you can challenge that and therefore make it a story for some point of time, so that your brand is thought through. Have you built in the scope for yearly subscriptions for your brand? And then that brings in much more reassurance of loyalty for the future. Um, especially if you are a new brand, new product, a new proposition, have you built in things like uh, educational campaign? Are you educating in a scalable way, in a cost efficient way, the particular target segment which you are targeting? Are you breaking certain myths? Yeah. For example, there are a lot of diet myths which is there. Have you taken one of the diet myth and breaking the myth and making the story for your brand? If there are certain deficiencies in people's health, are you tangibilizing those deficiencies? Do you know those off behavior markers of your people, and are you tangibilizing that? Are you bringing that alive in your, let's say, communication? Are you doing enough of contextual e-targeting? Are you doing enough of cohort c-targeting? Because that's a space which the digital space which allows you to do. Yeah. And are you doing that enough is another question. Yeah. And that's the way of doing modern day marketing. uh, have you actually made sure that your product is experienced the maximum, especially if you have a great product? Have you made sure that there is a group of people among which you've sampled your product, which is leading to peer-to-peer recommendations? Are you targeting your sampling in the high traffic places, of course, which fits the brand, not generally any place, yeah, but which fits the brand ethos? For example, are you owning a day in the year? Let's say sanitation day, or like whatever, women's empowerment day. Have you built in that kind of a plan for yourself? Can you participate in a day, which therefore immediately magnifies your scale? Have you thought through about physical and mentally anchorage of your product? Means, like, for example, Knorr soup maker, in my HUL days, we had to, I mean, Indians didn't really think of soup makers. They thought about recipes, and therefore we had to make sure that our soup makers are actually positioned with the specific vegetables of those recipes, and therefore consumers could understand that what is the soup maker for. So therefore physical and mentally anchoring of your product is very, very important. And there are in India, because it's like there are a lot of high density places, there's a lot of ample opportunities which we can go for. Product availability. In the modern day, product availability, of course, product availability is also about distribution, but product availability is also about, like, are you owning specific searches? Of course, you can't own like big searches, because then it will be like huge amounts of money. But are you owning certain specific searches, and are you e-guiding the consumer towards your brand? Are you in the high traffic counters? Have you participated? Do you have your brand stores in the e-pharmacies of today? Have you, for example, if you are in immunity space, have you thought through how to participate during this pandemic phase? Yeah. So that's another way of looking at product availability. Product visibility and promotion. You need to make sure that everything is tied to what we started off with, and for that particular consumer archetype. So are you doing enough of contextual and cohort targeting based on the e-behaviors? For example, some people are much more on chat, some people are much more on videos, and some people are much more on searches. Have we figured out that what is the most dominant e-behavior with the dominant cohort or the dominant context you want to speak through? So that's another way of looking at research data and making it very effective for your business. Have you actually involved communities for your kind of purpose? Now, for example, you might be associating yourself with self-help groups, and therefore you would it will lend itself to much more of a bigger purpose for the brand, yeah, which might be about women's empowerment. It can also lead to peer-to-peer recommendations. There's a lot of stuff which is going on in the overall country about, government of India doing this and all that. There are lots of missions. Have we participated in that? Have we tried to get into that? Then think of scale. India is like 23 Indias. How do we still build scale? For example, television as a medium cannot be ever avoided. Whatever the ways are, like in digital and all that. Have we thought through, once we have built our businesses through digital and the e-pharmacies, have we thought through what are the nuggets which we have learned, so that like our entry into the television space, or when we scale up into all the 30 states of India, what are the specific things which we would really highlight? Yeah. And that, therefore, in my mind, the digital and the e-commerce space gives you an extremely good learning on how to get into all the 30 Indias and all the great space of television, which immediately gives you a hike in terms of product reach, yeah, or in terms of your communication reach. And today there's a lot of contextual marketing which can be also done with with television, especially with OTT and all that. And last but not least, have you thought through about how will you grow the brand for the next 5 years? Yeah. For the next whatever upcoming future. Yeah. So what is in phase 1 of the brand, which kind of source of growth do you want? In phase 2 of the brand, what kind of competition are you looking at? In phase 3, what kind of like evolved competition are you looking at? Are you tracking yourself with respect to the brand and the category penetration which you are building in? Yeah. Because if you are participating in a way to enhance the market and develop the market along with your brand, the category also should increase its penetration, because then in the upcoming future you can have a better business. Same thing for your kind of like, if you are building the brand in phases, have you enriched current positioning when you started off? Have you brought in the education element, which I talked about as educational campaign? After having reached about 3 to 5% penetration, have you then gone into formats? Are you doing a brand purpose advertising when you are kind of like gone already into 2-3 years of the brand? So in that case, are you tracking your KPIs of your image attributes, of your product attributes, of your consideration attribute, of your loyalty attributes? And if you upfront build in those KPIs of today, you exactly know whether you are succeeding or not. And as a result, because of the agility which young entrepreneurs and young brands bring in, you can therefore make sure that you can always learn and relearn and get onto the new phase with your brand. So that's about my way of looking at how to build new brands in the health and wellness space in a consumer relevant manner. Over to you, Arvind.
Thanks, Arindam. It was quite interesting to look at all those frameworks, and I'm sure our audience would find value in implementing it. So I'm just going to start off, with a bunch of questions from Facebook and the Q&A bar. The first question is from Pravar Khosla. He's asking, when I'm thinking of starting something, when I'm thinking about it. There are two things that you spoke about. One is business purpose and brand purpose. What stage do you think I should start thinking about brand purpose while I've still not defined the business purpose?
No, I would advise first look at the business purpose first. Yeah, look at the consumer space. Look at the what are the triggers, barriers in that particular consumer space, and what can you solve for? Yeah. But frankly, always look at the consumer space. Always look for consumer stories. Talk to consumers, talk to people, day in and day out, to figure out that, and build the brand as a result. Then present your brand in a pilot manner to those same consumers. If you hear them talk about your brand and talk about your brand in an elevated manner, you will get some nuggets which will push your brand towards the brand purpose. Yeah. For example, Dove, for its like, almost 40-50 years, never thought about real beauty. It's about like while people were doing the testimonial advertising for long, people like us who are within the teams and all that, we saw the opportunity of building a bigger brand, yeah, and therefore the real beauty. So it is important that the brand purpose is there, uh, but then you will get it as nuggets once you familiarize your product innovation among the consumer space. And that's what the practical thing is. Otherwise, it happens. What happens, especially among the, with the market, is people start, just about, what should I say? They joke about your brand, thinking that ultimately he's just, selling a pill. But look at the way he's talking about women's empowerment. Yeah. So you should never allow that. Of course, your product should, do the talking, and that's very, very important. But then while doing that, build the brand purpose. That doesn't mean you don't start your business without an insight, by the way. Yeah. Purpose and insight is slightly different. You don't, insight is something based on which you are doing your communications. Yeah. Is as simple as that. Purpose is slightly bigger, where you're trying to make sure that you've taken a very sustainable angle of people's lifestyle and you're talking about it, or like you are participating in those conversations so that your brand remains relevant in the next 100 years as well. So that's the thing about purpose. Insight, by the way, is a must. Unless you have that insight, don't even think of starting, and don't force fit your product purpose into the insight as well. Yeah, they need to go together. The first 6 months will be extremely stressful because it won't match, but if you keep on at it, you will get a match, saying that energy from within, 40 plus, midlife crisis, I'm connecting the dot, this is the insight. Yeah, you will be able to do it. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So we have a second question from Simon, and he said that I've started a company in early 2020. I'm still at an ideation stage. I'm spending most of my time thinking about go to market and pre MVP, addressing the pre MVP stage. How much time one should be spending time in building market development wheel framework that you had presented today?
Uh, See, if you don't do it, the problem is, the market is ruthless. Yeah, market doesn't know whether you are a startup brand or or you are a MNC brand. And remember, whatever you build, the MNCs within 1 year will copy it. Yeah. So, and the consumer is least bothered. One irritation with your brand will make her shift within 1 second to that, whatever you've built in. And that's true whether whether it's today or like for probably 10 years ago. So if you, the market development framework allows you to think actually how to do your go to market, in fact. Yeah. Or you can take any other framework, but you have to think in a consistent manner. If you have I mean, if you've got your brand inside, if you know of the consumer archetype, if you exactly know what behavior of the consumer you're going to change through the task map, then I would advise you to first do a market development workshop with your peers, with knowledgeable people, with some consumers in that workshop, and ideate across these 10 cogs of the wheel. Because other than that, your messaging is not going to survive the test of time. Yeah. And this is proven. I mean, like, obviously these are inspired from the MNCs which I have served, and in some cases which I have led within those MNCs. Without this, getting a real strong space in the consumer life is going to be difficult, because you don't know where the consumer thing is. And especially today in the digital age, you don't know where that influence is going to come from. Obviously you should be always on top of it, but without workshopping the brand for its market development part of it, it will be difficult. Because you might have a great product, but unfortunately the truth is that 1 out of a million person would probably look at it. unless you really have made sure that across everything you've, especially for today's age, you've plugged your brand's presence.
Okay, got it. We have a next question from Amaya, and he's asking, we've been wondering if it is easy to move from physical product offering to service offerings. Do customers see you the same way? Do the brand elements also carry though?
No, so the thing is that if you have a product offering, you need to find a place of that product in the consumer's lifestyle. Yeah. So look at the service in a way in which you are solving or you are participating in the larger lifestyle of that particular person. Yeah. So service comes through that. So if your product is a actually a hardcore stuff, it's an SKU and all that, then within the first few years of it, I won't advise you to get onto service yourself. However, it's very important that you are present in the services being offered by different brands in that space. Yeah. So you ride on other brands, you ride on other services to make sure your brand is at the same point of time being talked about while the same category services are being this thing. Only after a certain threshold, and you can, therefore, my last chart was all about consistency and commitment. Once you have achieved a certain KPI of penetration among the user base, and you've achieved a certain kind of like portfolio, then only go for the service. Yeah. Otherwise, getting onto service, at its first stage has been always a problem. The example which I know of is, let's say, Ayush from the HUL portfolio. And it went on to Ayush Therapy Center at the beginning itself, thinking that it will, create a brand halo. And these are things which are generally, quite a lot of people talk about as well. But unfortunately, the real market thing is very tough. Yeah. So therefore, spreading yourself thin, even in today's age, is not the right thing to do.
Okay, awesome. So there are a few more questions, but we are at the tip of the iceberg with 6 o'clock touching another 3 minutes time. So I'm just going to pick the last question for Arindam to answer. The other questions we will point it to Arindam, and we'll come back to you with specific responses, audience. Chirag Grover has asked a question about the point that you mentioned about physical and mental space. Yeah, and you also quoted about Norsup example, and he's asking if you could quote any other example covering that. Could be very helpful for him to think about it from that dimension.
I mean, you can take Lifebuoy, same thing, right? You put the why do you put a Lifebuoy soap in a
Hi, Arindam. I think you froze a bit. Are audience able to hear Arindam talk? I'm not able to hear. Okay. I think his screen is frozen. We'll just give him a minute. Thanks, Shilpa, Mamta, and Akhil. We'll just give him a minute for him to come back. Should be an internet issue. I think he got knocked out. We'll just give him a minute to see if he can join. He was quoting an example of Lifebuoy, so I'm hoping he could join us very soon to complete his response around that. Okay, I'm just going to utilize this time to see if I can, give you, the next session details until, oh, Arindam is back. Hey, Arindam. Hey, Arindam, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. So you were talking about Lifebuoy as an example. It'll be awesome if
Yeah.
you could summarize that.
Yeah, so Lifebuoy, by participating in, first of all, the child school program, Lifebuoy has its own Swastchetna program, where you actually place the hands under a UV screen, and you see the germs, on your hands, and you magnify that. And that is one of the brilliant, scalable, cheap, cost-efficient examples of mental anchorage as well. So you are playing on the red bar always, to make sure that that gets repeated anytime that particular situation comes. And there are lots of others, which I can talk about, or like at least I can communicate in the immediate future.
Okay, very nice, Arindam. We've already touched 6 p.m. Thank you so much for your time. Taking time to walk us through your perspective on how they can think about building insights from the wellness industry and the consumer goods industry. Thank you so much. On that note, I would love to conclude the session by giving you information about the upcoming sessions. The next session will take place on 9th of January at this, during the usual time slot, 4 p.m. We have two sessions on Saturday, on 9th. The first session is going to be delivered by Vinod Kalkotwar, a veteran in the fundraising, known in the world of fundraising, and he's going to be presenting his insights on fundraising and valuation, followed by which we have Bala Girisbala, who's going to be presenting how can you think about presenting your business ideas to your prospective investors, prospective stakeholders, and employers. On that note, thank you so much for everyone joining us for both these sessions. Stay safe. Look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday. Take care. Bye-bye.